Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Teachable Moment on the Educational 80 podcast. We'll be right back with Dr. Mekia Troy, but first, we want to give our sponsors a shout out. These are companies that I used as an athletic director. I have no problem recommending them to you. So please stay with us for the next 3 minutes. Don't hit that fast forward button. We're going to give our sponsors a shout out. Here we go. We want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame for their support. Go to their website, vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's a great way for you to showcase your school record boards or your school's Hall of Fame, or simply tell your school's most compelling stories. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more support, more security, more customization. Hometown Ticketing is here to help you make the best online ticketing solution. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Go to huddle.com, change the way you see the game. As an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a huddle school. I'd used it forever as a football coach, but I wanted to make sure our other coaches were going to enjoy it. And they did. They just loved the tools that Huddle provided that helped them coach our kids up to the highest level. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Check out their indoor score tables and their video boards. You can also schedule a live web demo to see their products in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com right now to check out all the great things they can do for you. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Gipper is the official social media graphics solution for us. And if you go to Gipper.com, their team is going to help you to create world-class content for your school's social media channel. It'll help you celebrate your athletes and promote your teams. Gipper's used and trusted by over 3,000 athletic programs across the country. It's professional graphic design made simple. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We'd like to thank Home Campus. Home Campus is the exclusive high school and state association management platform for the podcast. It's also your one-stop for things like scheduling, student athlete eligibility and clearance, working with parents, coaches, uploading forms, you name it, Home Campus does it. To get started, all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's homecampus.com. We also want to say thanks to our good friends at Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Athletic directors already hear back from the complainers. Well, athletic surveys will connect you to them, but they'll also connect you to the 98% that support your program. And that's a tremendously valuable tool to have when you're talking with a frustrated parent or your principal or your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com to get started. That's athleticsurveys.com. And we want to thank our good friends at Snap Raise. If you're looking for the best online fundraiser out there, one that works, go to snapraise.com. Check out their platform. We used it at our school with tremendous success. Coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. You're going to love it too. Go to snapraise.com. Check out their other platforms like Snap Sponsor, Snap Snore, but make sure you check out Snap Raise. Again, it's the best online fundraising platform out there. Snapraise.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Teachable Moment with Dr. Mekia Troy. Regular listeners will know Dr. Troy's the director of athletics at Creekside High School. It's a very successful program in Georgia. Also very active at the state and the national level. She's a member of the national faculty, and we do this every week where she kind of shares her wisdom, her perspective on a topic that's close to her. So, Dr. Troy, welcome back. This is segment number 22. We've been doing this now for 22 weeks. What do you have for our listeners today on Teachable Moment?
Thanks so much for having me, Jake. 22. It's a big number, but glad to be able to share. I appreciate it. Well, since we've thrown out 22, I guess that's a good segue into our national conference back from 2022. we got a chance to be inspired by a keynote speaker at that point, Inky Johnson, great inspirational guy, former player, football player from University of Tennessee. And I'd heard his story before. He's come to campus before to speak to some of our student athletes. We had some that gone to the University of Tennessee and had a relationship with him. So he's able to come out and speak to our student athletes. And I'd heard him speak before, read his book. However, this was the first time for me to hear him speak to, us as ADs, as leaders, in that setting at the national conference back in 2022. And he said something that really stuck with me like immediately when he said it. And it was, in times of crisis, people revert to their level of training. And it was like a ton of bricks as soon as he said it, because, it just made so much sense to think that, you know what, people are going to do what they know or what they feel comfortable with. And unless they are constantly repeating it, doing it as a routine, if it's not like embedded in them, they're going to skip past all of that and just go back to whatever they think they remember. They might miss steps, miscues. And as an athletic administrator, it's our responsibility to make sure that our coaches are ready and prepared in situations where there might be a crisis. And just by definition, crisis is just any intense event that could, bring difficulty, danger, or trouble. But the thing is, how are they going to respond in those moments? Because they do occur within the job that we have. So we can't prepare them for everything, but we do want to prepare them for some things, make sure there's steps, a routine they can follow in those situations. Just for example, something that I didn't initially think of, even though I do drive buses. I don't know how many of our ADs or coaches have to do that sometimes, but I do drive the buses, drive the team to events from time to time. And our regular route drivers go through evacuation procedures with the students. They practice it. Well, the difference with the athletes is a lot of them may not ride the school bus. They may not ride the bus because they, stay for games, stay for practices. They drive to school. So now you're riding to an event, and that's the first time you've ridden a bus, who knows in how long. They may not even remember those procedures. So as the athletic administrator, to make sure your coaches have prepared the students, even know what to do in an emergency situation on a bus. Something that may not always cross minds, but it could be something that you encourage your captains to know what to do or how to handle in a situation. But either way, you want to make sure that people are prepared to deal with those things when they might come up. And a bus is no different than anything else. Many of us are making sure that we have emergency action plans for our events and our practices, which is great to have them documented and know what to do. But I guess the question is, are they being rehearsed? Are you taking time to practice them or walk through the steps so that your coaches begin to feel more comfortable with what to do in an emergency, particularly in a situation where you might not have an athletic trainer? You think too, we're just coming back from the holidays, and our holiday practices, our athletic trainer is not there. Or on some of our road events, the athletic trainer is not traveling with the team. Or even in just some practices where there are multiple things on the campus at once, and she's on one side of the campus and there's an event on the other side, she might not be able to get to it immediately in an emergency situation. You want to make sure the coaches are prepared to deal with those things and actually have rehearsed steps of the emergency action plan. So it's not just the documentation and they don't know what to do, because in the heat of the moment, you start to fumble or maybe start to miss steps, and you don't want that. As much as possible. There was a time we experienced a situation where the athletic trainer traveled with our soccer team that had made the playoffs, and they were about 3 hours away from campus. When she mentioned that she wanted to go, she said, "Hey, I'm going to travel with the soccer team." And I said, "Oh, that's fine. We've got, emergency action plans." And jokingly, I said, "And the coaches know how to dial 911. I don't know what I opened up at that point, but by saying that, but we ended up having an emergency while she was gone. And you know, it was an example of the thing, like Inky said, in moments of crisis, people are going to revert to their level of training. And for the number of people that were outside, a number of coaches that were outside in this event, this was track and field, some of them were ready to spring into action, and some of them just completely couldn't do it. They couldn't help. But thankfully, those that were ready to go were able to, call 911, call administration, call parents, while the others actually had to start CPR on a young man in this situation. Um, it turned out fine. I'm so glad that it did. There wasn't much that I wasn't on campus. The trainer wasn't there. There's nothing that we could have done in just, immediately calling us. But that made me take a bigger focus on making sure coaches practice the emergency action plan so that they would feel more comfortable. I mean, who's really comfortable in an emergency, but at least they can take the steps to know I gotta take care of these things for our student athletes. And I would make sure the athletic trainer actually speaks at our initial meeting in the fall. Come in, talk through the emergency action plans, talk to the coaches, let them ask questions so that they can feel more comfortable with what it is that they have to do in those situations when she's present and when she's not, because the plan can't be the same when she's absent from the situation. We need to know what to do if she's not there and not just rely on the fact, well, she'll take care of it. No, we need to be sure as coaches as to what you're going to do. So that's help, making sure people are, refreshing their CPR and AED training and certifications and making sure they're up to date. It just makes a difference because again, as he said, people are going to go to what they know, but we want to make sure that you're comfortable with what it is that you know so you can use it and help us in the time when we really have something going on. So it's been helpful to this point. I've actually seen a couple of coaches from that first situation redeem themselves in another emergency, but I think that that goes back to the preparation that we've added to make sure they're ready in those situations.
You know, I've heard those stories a lot, and long story short, you're absolutely right. The rehearsal part, it's something that we talk about. It's important, but it's something that I don't think we do enough of. And again, the long story short, I actually brought the idea up to my coaches. Hey, this is something I'd like to do. You let me know when's a good time that you want to rehearse this with your team. We just thought doing it just with your team. What if the coach collapses or something? What do you do? And one of our coaches, thought it was a cool idea. Hopefully they all did, but one actually acted on it. And I was watching from afar, but it was really cool. And he didn't do anything special to rehearse with his assistants or the student athletes, just in the middle of practice. He pretended like he was lightheaded and went down, took a knee. And, it was maybe 20 seconds and my cell phone was ringing. One of the assistant coaches was calling. And I said, what's going on? What have you done? They hadn't called 911 yet. But it was, again, that actual practicing. Have you guys, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but have you done anything like that with your coaches at Creekside where you practice part of the emergency action plan?
Yes, but not as an impromptu surprise, which I think might be a good idea to make sure you're ready and react. But hopefully no one calls 911 and causes a false alarm. But no, that's a good idea to, kind of spring it on them, make sure they're ready.
Mhm. As you work with, your coaches, and whether it's, they're traveling, have you taken the medical bag? Because we all know that this school doesn't have a trainer.
Mhm.
Um, you know, how do you find your coaches to embracing this important part of being prepared, making sure their athletes are safe, et cetera? Is it a challenge or are they pretty much readily open to, hey, this is part of the job?
Yeah, pretty much it's been viewed that way as part of the job. I haven't had any, pushback or anyone afraid or anything like that. You think of the 14 legal duties and keeping our kids safe, not just in the practices, but in every aspect. So yes, that's been something they've taken very seriously. And we also, our athletic trainer does a good job of reaching out to our opponents and finding out in advance what they have, what they don't, giving a heads up about kids that might have injuries or things like that, and having that open line of communication. So that's helpful. And this is a privilege that we've not always had. We've not always had an athletic trainer on staff, and some schools don't have that. I recognize it. So it's even more important for those coaches to be prepared.
Right. But if you do have an athletic trainer, that is something as an AD that you sit down with them and you let them know, hey, this is something I would like you to do, and if they're new to your school, over the course of this school year, I'd like you to reach out to all of our opponents, find out, what we can expect when our teams show up. And I think most trainers are going to embrace that. One last question, then I'm going to let you go. For your school's emergency action plan, the actual plan, the global plan, is that something you created from scratch, or did you, like I did, borrowed and stole from existing plans that were in our area, in our state, and even a couple from across the country. How did you come up with your school's plan?
Right. Thankfully, we within our school district, there is a template that's shared. That's a good place to start. All of our campuses are different. So after getting that template, athletic trainer and myself are able to go through and kind of tailor make it to what we have on campus. Our entrances and exits, the places where, EMS would have to travel to get to, the differences between indoor and outdoor, locations of AEDs, that type of thing. Yeah, so we can then, adjust it to our school specifically at that point. So thankfully we do have a template that we're able to start with.
Right. And for ADs, if you're listening, those templates are out there. And Dr. Troy brings up a great point. Start with your own school district. And if they don't have anything, go to the school that's just down the street or in the next county. It's probably going to be something that you can use. I would say maybe 60% of the formatting, but you're going to have to sub in your fields, your gyms, the indoor, outdoor, the phone numbers, the contact people, all that stuff. But when you're done, you're going to have a document that's going to help your kids and your coaches be safe. So, Dr. Troy, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and get a copy of your emergency action plan or just connect with you, what's the best way they can do it?
Absolutely. You reach out to me by email. It's drtroyme@gmail.com, DrTroyme. Same handle on social media. You like to reach out.
Okay. And Dr. Troy has a very strong social media game. Check her out on Twitter. Dr. Mekia Troy, thanks so much for sharing with our listeners today on Teachable Moment, and all the best as we continue with our spring sports season.
Thank you so much.
For listeners, we do this every single week, and we also upload the Zoom recordings to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. Of course, we appreciate your support. Come back next week for another teachable moment and just about every day for new content on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time. Before we go, we do want to thank all of our sponsors. Go to huddle.com, see all the things that they can do for you and your school. We want to thank Gipper, the official social media graphics solution for the podcast. Go to gipper.com, start creating world-class content for your school's social media channel. Go to homecampus.com. As an athletic director, I use Home Campus every day. Scheduling, student athlete eligibility and clearance, talking with parents, uploading forms. Go to homecampus.com to get started. We want to thank Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. You heard me say before, probably the best purchase I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and check out their products. We want to thank Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. If you're looking for a fundraising platform, stop right here. Go to snapraise.com. It's the best online fundraiser out there, snapraise.com. We want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. If you've never done a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Go to athleticsurveys.com. We want to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles. Vitalsignswalloffame.com. Mention the podcast, you'll get a nice discount. And Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule a live web demo to see their products in action. Thanks again for listening to this episode of Teachable Moment. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.